Okay, so my paper is dry. If you want to speed up the drying time, whether it be watercolor, gouache, inks, even acrylic, you just use your blow dryer, but I just let it air dry. So I'm not going to use a filbert in this area. I don't want to. I mean, you can describe it linearly using the side or the tip, but I'm going to use two smaller brushes. I'm going to use this smaller round and then this smaller flat. The reason I chose these is I feel that if you're going to go for a small brush, that for description, like for the texture in a tree trunk, you don't want an end that is flimsy and that, that doesn't have this like girth or it doesn't have like this strength or sturdiness, that it feels flimsy. So like when you load your brush, if it was flimsy, it's going to be weighted. So I want something that is small, that is going to give me detail, that is a good shape, that is appropriate, that I feel, and these two are, and that will not be weighted down with me loading my brush. The other thing is you don't want to use a lot of paint. You want to load your brush some, but it's not like you're a saturated color and like an area. We like thinking about the size of this texture. It's not a lot. We don't want to load our brush too much, and we want to keep in mind the scale of that texture, if that makes sense. So the first thing I'm going to do is I don't dunk my brush in because all brushes are absorbent. So I just dip the tip. I'm just going to take a little bit of this ivory black and I'm going to add water to it. Now, that's a saturated color. That's a very deep value. I don't want it to be that dark. So now this is going to be my dirty water. And I, dry off my brush. Each time that you add water to a mixture of color, you're lightening the value. It is not going to be as dark. And I didn't want this to be as dark. So I'm going to start with this color and I'm going to hold the end of my brush. And so the first thing you want to do, load your brush, and then go tap, tap to remove some of the excess amount. Okay. We want to remove a little more. There we go. There. So at first we're going to load it again. Tap, tap. There. Okay. There. Tap, tap. Other thing is we do want to be mindful of the value, but I want to block in first. So I'm holding the end of my brush. Ooh, that's a little too much paint. It's not as dry. There we go. This is more dry. So there's no real right or, wrong way to make, that needs to be loaded less, to make texture for a tree. I would just look at the texture. I mean, it's going to be linear, but, you don't want to do straight downward lines. You want them to be kind of, I think it's a combination of thinking line and then mark making. And so just playing around, start making marks and lines and being reactionary to what you're doing and glancing over at your photo reference, or maybe it's from life. I'm going to take some of that green. Okay. And the side looks darker, but I don't want it to do, and so it's going to have needs to have a deeper value. There we go. And this has, there. So you load your brush and go tap, tap. You know, but we're going to look at paintings tomorrow. Andrew Wyeth didn't, and other artists like John Singer Sargent, and they didn't consistently just do. See, now I'm doing wet media on dry paper, so I'm mixing it between dry brush. So when I go tap, 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 I'm removing the excess amount of paint, and we do that because it's called dry brush, so there's not as much paint on there. See how it's dry? But sometimes you want that, so I think it's going back and forth and being specific, alternating. And I think, you're going to be purposeful with your marks and your lines, but you're going to test it out if that makes sense. And then you're going to review, like once you put it all down, and you're going to have to go back in and, make things darker or, a different color. But I think this is starting to have some good texture. I mean, I need to bring it all the way down, and then, I can develop it more. So now there's this like brownish green. So tap, tap. I'm going to go back into that. There. Yeah. Okay, so let's, again, for dry brush, tap, tap. There. So you applied it dryly. Now, if I wasn't doing dry brush, I just loaded my brush. Watercolor bead. This is wet media on dry paper doing this. And if you're a little confused, that's okay. We'll go over it again. Okay, dry brush, tap, tap. And see how it's more dry? Like looking at that versus there. Now I need more pigment. Ew, that's too dark. Okay. I need to line the value of it. Okay, tap, tap. Okay, that's dry brush. Tap, tap. It's dry brush. And then this wet media on dry paper. So see how I go like that. So watercolor bead. And then I'm just pushing it around. Okay, tap, tap, dry brush. I want to get everything blocked in, then you can go back in with like really darker lines and like, develop this more. Tap, tap. Yeah, be just really loose, really loose with it. If it doesn't turn out right. Now there's now a blossom because this was a wet area and then I put wet paint in it. So there you got to see wet media, wet into wet. Okay, dry brush again. Wet media on dry paper. Okay, dry brush. Dry brush. And see, I want it to show up more, so I'm going to do wet media on dry paper for here. I think using a combination of both, but this definitely needs blocked in more and then, develop it further. But there, you saw how to apply it like dry brush and how to apply it with wet media on dry paper. Thank you.